found us.
How is everyone doing today? Welcome back to Hooligan TV, and today we are going to be taking a quick little look at the first Destiny DLC to drop, the Curse of Osiris. So, I would like to make this very abundantly clear at the beginning of this. I'm not the leading authority on any type of game review, if that's what you would like to call this abomination of a video. Nor would I like to claim that I know everything and that I'm a fantastic game critic. This is simply going to be a video for those who are an average gamer like myself, even though I live for the grind. But nonetheless, an average video of myself kind of discussing the pros and cons of the video in very subtle detail, nothing too eccentric. It's going to be decently short, and maybe help you make a decision on whether or not to buy it if you're on the fence. Now, to supplement my beautiful voice and audio, there is a sped up clip of a couple of the missions from the DLC playing in the background at 200% speed. Find it entertaining as you will. If not, understandable. It's quite awful. But, I mean, you have my beautiful voice to listen to, so what can you complain about? So firstly, to get it out of the way, I would like to simply talk about the story as a whole, as this is going to be the biggest portion of the video. So the story in and of itself isn't awful. Actually, I think it has a pretty fantastic aspect and idea. The story isn't too complicated, as most of the Destiny franchise isn't. It's very straightforward. However, the concept of what it's revolving around is interesting, and that sort of says a lot for Destiny. When we play Destiny, we're pretty used to time travel and alternate dimensions and the fight for survival. That's a pretty common theme even in the first game. However, in this DLC, the fact that you already kind of know the future, it isn't something that you're fighting against in the same traditional fashion. Instead, you're fighting for a different future, as you already have seen what happens if you don't succeed. This whole aspect makes the storyline a little bit more enjoyable as a whole. I found myself kind of looking towards the next mission in hopes of, I don't know, finishing it, but more of like finding a solution to the in-game problem. I wanted to win simply so I didn't let Earth perish. And, oh god, here comes the spoilers. I'll throw up a big old warning sign right here, alright? So if you haven't played the DLC and are super excited for the compelling storyline that awaits you, just exit out of this video. I won't be harmed. My emotions will be fine. I don't really have any as it is, so feel free. So like I said, the story revolves mostly around, or like I said, those of you who do not know, it revolves around you chasing Osiris, who has been mentioned in the previous game as well as the base story of Destiny 2, into the Infinity Forest, or at least I hope that's how it is said. I've only played through this one time. And the Infinity Forest is the center of Mercury, where you get to look at different timelines, overlapping timelines, different scenarios, and that's pretty much what it is. It's a giant Vex machine that runs scenarios for the future. Now, this is really awesome. It was really fun to experience. You get to walk into the vast openness that is the core, or at least close to it, of Mercury, and that was really exciting for me. It was different in a way that was good for Destiny, as it's sort of the same run and gun shooter as it always has been, and nothing's really changed. Something that is super compelling about the storyline is, although the characters are awful, and I mean the voice acting, but we'll talk about that later. The aesthetic, if that makes any sense, the feeling, the visuals were beautiful. So to go into a little bit more depth of the visuals, when you walk into the Infinity Forest, God, I really hope I'm saying that correctly. But when you walk into it, as well as when you go to Mercury, the feeling that you get is overwhelmingly peaceful, I guess, even though there's a lot of combat. What I mean by peaceful is it's sort of an ancient ruined society, kind of like Rome or ancient Greece, I guess, but we all know the Vex to be super advanced machines, and that's what gives this aesthetic and feeling something really nice. Walking into the forest of infinite timelines, it's exciting simply to see the clouds of dust, or I don't know, whatever that is, nice, beautiful, fluffy clouds in the distance, and seeing the platforms warp in front of you, which is obviously no new thing to this franchise, but has a more, I don't know, immediate feel as you step onto them. So I would like to quickly just talk about how, of course, it's super linear. I mean, as the hopes of the story are nice, and that's something to attribute to the credit of the creators, it's obviously known and should be stressed that the combat is awful, and not awful in a way that's not playable. I mean, it's super linear. There's no new enemies. I mean, they reskinned some goblins, so that's a throwback to the Vault of Glass raid. So there's descendants. But I mean, other than that, it's pretty straightforward run and gun with just some cookie cutter, get to the gate, kill some enemies, and proceed on to the next gate. There's no intuition or puzzles, or well, obviously not. But I mean, you gotta hope, right? You gotta hope. But just as the combat was uneventful and a little bit of a disappointment, so was the new location of Mercury. Now, it's nice to know that Mercury is a Vex hub, to say the least, I guess. However, I got there and I was very excited. I was like, oh, we finally get to see Mercury. We've like played on a couple maps in the first game, and we get to see what it is, as it's this huge Vex hotspot and an integral part of the story, and it's just super bland. I mean, the aesthetic, like I said earlier, is cool. It looks nice, but other than the mission areas, it's incredibly small. And I was met with just sheer disappointment, and not like the angry disappointment where you're like, man, this just straight up sucks. It was more like when you were a child and you did something horrible and you felt guilty, and then you went up to your mother, and instead of saying she was mad at you, she said, I'm disappointed in you. It was that deep, striking, agonizing, I have no emotions left kind of disappointment. And the only reason I felt this way is, I guess, the idiotic brain that I have thought, maybe this DLC will be a tad bit different. They'll put a little bit extra work in it. It won't be like previous reiterations where it's a new raid and nothing more. However, obviously, as I stated, I was met with nothing of that kind. Instead, it was just a simple, very small map with one single public interaction, and that kind of wraps up the entire availability and interactions in the entire new location. So next, I guess we can skip past all that and talk about the prime greatness that is the Destiny franchise. And you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the phenomenal voice acting. So if you don't have a problem with the voice acting, I suspect that you seriously need to see a doctor or a psychologist for your mental health. And I don't mean that in an awful way. I mean that sincerely. I'm actually worried. Please seek help. However, I simply believe that the voice acting, I mean, in the entire Destiny franchise is just god awful. I mean, other than like Nathan Fillion, I believe his name is, who voices Cade Six, because he's a famous actor, he does very well in this. You don't get that feeling from any other character at all. The Ghost is lackluster in his comedy skits, and every other character who tries to seem serious or desperate for certain help or anything just comes off as like jokingly childish. They don't have any means or anything to communicate any type of emotion to the player. Now, I may be over-analyzing this a tad bit, which in my own right I probably am, and you can go ahead and flame me down in the comments. It's okay. Like I said, I don't have any emotions. It's totally fine. But this is just simply because I really enjoy stories in games, and I know that playing Destiny, I've already evoked my right to having such a pleasure or privilege, and I know that fairly well. However, there's always hope for the next DLC and something more. But still, it's just awful to finally think that you're going to be attached to a character and instead be met with, like I said, the sheer disappointment of what the DLC actually entails, other than the beautiful visuals and the nice concept. It's like you wrote down an amazing idea on paper, and you were like, man, this is going to get me an A for my school project, and then you didn't like have the energy nor time to like accurately make your project. So instead of putting it on that nice, beautiful like Elmer's poster board, you like taped some pieces together on like some box you found in the garage. And I know this is a really accurate analogy, but I'm just trying to just tell you this is the exact emotions I went through while playing this DLC. And I don't mean to just absolutely harass Bungie and or Destiny 1 or 2, because I do love the game. I live for the grind, and that's why I own it. I didn't buy this game thinking, oh man, I sure am going to enjoy the plot lines in this. I simply bought it as a means to an end to fulfill my addiction of grinding, shooting people, and then succeeding with the grind and being better than other people. That pretty much wraps up the entire, I don't know, expectations for the game. So, I mean, without overanalyzing it too much more, I guess we can move on to the next section. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about just wrapping it up and whether or not it's worth buying. So yeah, the story fantastic, visuals pretty amazing as you can expect from the creators of Bungie. They make wonderful games in general. The combat nothing new. You're not going to find any will to live out of this game. And if you're on the edge of a cliff and someone's like, "Oh, don't jump," Destiny 2 DLC 1 came out. I'm pretty sure you're going to take the step. Just saying. But the voice acting, even with its awfulness, still conveys the story. I mean, in a fine way. So I guess I'm just overanalyzing and being a slight little prick, which is fine. We don't got to talk about that. So now that you know all this, I'll simply just talk about whether or not it's worth to buy. So for someone as dumb as me, I don't know who is more stupid. I'm saying that sentence probably pointed it out. However, I don't know who's more stupid. Bungie for making a game that's super linear, or me buying the game. Obviously me, because Bungie's made millions of dollars off this and I'm just someone who buys into the hype crave. However, I still believe that it's worth noting if you're on the edge, you should take some of these ideas and thoughts into account before spending money. I mean, I spent $60 on the base game and $40 for the deluxe edition. That's $100 for a video game that I got only a couple months out of entertainment out of. So I guess it comes down to this. If you really enjoy the Destiny franchise, which more power to you. I mean, I do, even though I hate it. It's like a love-hate relationship. But if you really enjoy it, then yeah, buy it. If you haven't bought it yet, I would spend the money. It's not too much. Buy the season pass and enjoy it for what it is. Get on the grind and get to another maximum power level. But if you don't enjoy the Destiny grind as it is, the RPG and magnificence of the Bungie creation, I would strongly simply say don't buy it. And I don't mean to be like, oh man, you should take my word for it because I'm one person. I'm simply an average gamer, and after analyzing it for enough time to be educated about the storyline, game, etc., I don't think you're going to find enough entertainment for the money you're paying. Simply because I bought the full game with the deluxe edition, and in just a couple months, I had done everything. And not like I reached the max power level. No, I flawless trials, and I did the raid, I did the prestige raid, I did everything weeks before this DLC was like even close to coming out. And that's my one worry, is that I'm going to get into this and get to the power level in a week, and then it's just going to be garbage to me again until they decide to release the next DLC. In all fairness to Bungie, this is an amazing marketing campaign. They get their money's worth, and they get you to come back every single time with little to no failure. And for that reason, I praise them. But for someone who needs to spend the money for the game, I would simply say, if you're on the edge, wait off. I mean, you can always buy it later if you decide to regret it and catch up in a week. It's not that hard to get to max light level. Most of the time spent in the game is when you're at max light level trying to find something to do. And that's kind of the awful truth. So yeah, that about wraps up this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If not, you can go ahead, like I said, flame me in the comments. I feed on the hate. I want it all. And if you guys would like to see any other content like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel of Hooligan TV, as well as if you have any ideas for future content. I would really appreciate you if you drop that in the comment section down below. So like I said, thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time.